At 4:12 p.m. on a Thursday in March, my mother tore my MIT acceptance letter in half at the kitchen table. She didn't raise her voice. She held the paper at the top and bottom, steady hands, and pulled until the sound gave way. My grandmother watched from her chair by the window, television volume low. My sister stood frozen on the third stair, fingers wrapped around the banister. My father was in the garage. He did not come in. The letter had offered a full scholarship, housing, tuition. A future measured in semesters instead of shifts. My mother tore it once, then again. At 4 a.m., I sat on the bathroom tile and taped it, back together with Scotch tape from the medicine cabinet. At 5:22, I left with a duffel bag and $80 from my father's wallet. I did not come back for 7 years. In 3 weeks, I will walk into my grandmother's 80th birthday party with something my mother cannot tear. In our house, the rule was never written down, but it had weight. The eldest daughter stays. She learns the recipes. She keeps the appointments. She marries within 30 miles. My grandmother stayed. My mother stayed. No one called it sacrifice. They called it loyalty. The proof sat on the kitchen counter in a wooden recipe box, oak darkened by oil and years. Davis carved across the lid. Inside were index cards in 3 different handwritings: pierogi, sponge cake, Sunday roast. The box did not hold diplomas. It held instructions. When my letter arrived in a thick envelope with red lettering, it violated something older than paper. It suggested departure. It suggested choice. My mother had followed the rule without arguing. I had followed it without agreeing. 7 years ago, when the bus pulled away before sunrise, I did not yet know whether I was running from the rule or rewriting it. The Greyhound station was 1.4 miles from our house, a glass block room attached to a gas pump that flickered even in daylight. I bought a one-way ticket to Boston for $89. I paid in 20s and 10s. I had saved from babysitting $340 folded into the inside pocket of my jacket. At 4:47 a.m., my father met me in the garage. He did not ask where I was going. He took out his wallet and counted 4 20s into my hand. "For the bus," he said, though I had already paid for it. We did not hug. The carburetor lay open on the workbench between us, as if he had been fixing something that couldn't quite be repaired. The bus left at 5:22 a.m. exactly. I watched our street disappear through the scratched window glass. By the time the sun came up, I was already someone my family did not know how to name. MIT did not feel cinematic. It felt procedural. I worked 20 hours a week in the materials lab and another 12 in the dining hall. My scholarship covered tuition and housing. My hands covered the rest. I learned the language of tensile strength, failure points, controlled stress. I kept my GPA above 3.8 because numbers were arguments no one could interrupt. By my 4th year, a research project on rapid infection detection turned into a startup. 5 of us were listed on the patent. My founder equity was 2.1%, vesting over 4 years with a 1-year cliff. When the cliff passed, my shares were worth more than 6 figures on paper. Not loud money, but real. I framed the taped acceptance letter in a black frame above my desk. The browning tape crossed the word, "Congratulations." I did not call home. Then, 7 years after I left, my father's name appeared on my phone. My father called on a Tuesday at 6:38 p.m. I was still in the lab, calibrating a sensor that refused to stabilize. His number lit up with a Pennsylvania area code I hadn't saved. "Your grandmother's turning 80, he said. "Party's in 3 weeks. Everyone'll be there." I waited. "They're starting on Haley." Haley was 5. I had met her once as an infant in a photograph Maddie mailed without a note. "What do you mean starting?" "The talk. Girls, stay close. Carol bought her a toy kitchen." Your mom nodded. He cleared his throat. "There's going to be a toast." The sensor hummed steadily beside me. 3 weeks. A room full of witnesses, another daughter being trained before she could spell her name. I looked at the clock above the lab door. 6:41 p.m. The rule had found a new target. "I thought you should know," my father said. I did. I met the attorney on a Thursday at 4:15 p.m. Her office overlooked Boylston Street. Third floor, muted carpet. Diplomas aligned with mathematical precision. I explained what I wanted without telling the whole story. $200,000 placed into a trust. Beneficiary: any descendant of Margaret Davis accepted into an accredited college, university, or trade program. No gender distinction. No geographic restriction. Funds released upon proof of enrollment. She asked twice if I was certain about the amount. I was. The wire transferred the following Monday. The documents were drafted in 8 days. I signed in blue ink. The notary stamped the lower right corner at 11:02 a.m., the seal pressing an impression into paper that could not be smoothed out. She slid the documents into a cream-colored envelope with her firm's letterhead. I did not open it again. 3 weeks later, I booked a flight home for Saturday morning. Sit. The living room held 30 people and one rule. Folding chairs lined the walls. The wooden recipe box sat on the kitchen counter behind my mother's shoulder. Lid closed, name carved deep. At 12:27 p.m., my grandmother tapped her glass with a butter knife. "Davis women stay," she said. "We don't chase." Glasses lifted. My mother's eyes found mine across the room. Haley sat cross-legged on the carpet with a plastic horse in her hand. I knelt beside her and unfolded the taped MIT letter. The tape had browned across the word "Congratulations." I placed it gently on the floor between us. "This was mine," I said. Then I stood and set the cream envelope on the coffee table. "This is a $200,000 education trust. For Haley. For any of us who choose school." No one spoke. My mother stepped forward. "This is not who we are." I met her eyes. Same tone, same volume. "Then I'm not who we are. If you've ever been told who you were supposed to be before you decided for yourself, you understand this moment." The silence held. I picked up my coat and walked toward the door. 3 months later, my father called at 6:42 p.m. Haley had started a Saturday STEM program at Lehigh Carbon Community College, the same campus my mother once applied to at 18. 6 Saturdays, 5 hours each. A week after that, an envelope arrived in pink crayon handwriting. Inside was a drawing of a red brick building with Haley, printed across the top in careful block letters. Folded inside was my taped MIT letter. A yellow note in Maddie's handwriting read, "I'll write my own." I reframed the letter above my desk. The tape was still visible across the crease. It wasn't holding something broken anymore. It was holding history.